Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are often considered to be some of the best TV shows ever made, and have gathered an incredibly large following over the years. And with a large following comes a lot of fan theories, and while some of them can be mildly plausible and convincing, the Breaking Bad community in particular seems to have a habit of coming up with the dumbest shit you could possibly think of. And with the release of Better Call Saul's final season just a few weeks away, I thought it would be a good time to dive into the fan base and try and find as many theories as I could, in case the upcoming season confirms any of them. These theories range from pretty likely to downright baffling, and I'm going to present it as an iceberg because those are still relevant. I'll also rate each theory out of 10 on a scale of how likely they are. Starting things off, we have a pretty popular theory that is most likely a meme, but I see it so frequently that I decided to include it. Basically, some people think that Kim Wexler from Better Call Saul will somehow end up as Wendy from Breaking Bad, that prostitute who Jesse sometimes hooked up with. The evidence for this theory begins and ends with the fact that we haven't seen Kim and Wendy in the same room together, at least not yet. It seems that pretty much every movie or TV show has a dream theory, and Breaking Bad has multiple variations of it. Some people think that the entire show was a dream for Bryan Cranston's character from Malcolm in the Middle, some people think it was a dream Jesse had in chemistry class, and some people think just the finale was a dream, which we'll get to later on. I don't particularly care for dream theory in any situation, and don't think it's very likely, especially considering Better Call Saul exists. This theory is barely even a theory, it's basically canon. Gus got real mad when Hector killed his business partner Max, to the point that he dedicated the rest of his life to getting revenge. Not to mention that he built a memorial for him that we see in Better Call Saul. It seems very likely that Gus and Max are a bit more than just business partners, considering we never see any evidence of him having any interest in women, despite being in the same room as Lydia. This is easily at least a 9 out of 10 chance of being true, and we may finally get confirmation in Better Call Saul's last season. This is probably the most popular fan theory to come out of the show since it ended, to the point that MatPat himself even made a video about it. And despite whatever evidence there is to support it, it's still stupid and has been shut down by both Vince Gilligan and Bryan Cranston on numerous occasions, and was further disproven in El Camino, where the radio says that Walter's definitely dead, so hopefully people can stop talking about it now. When Better Call Saul was in its early seasons, people often theorized that Ernesto and Gus Fring were connected in some way, usually saying he's his son or even that they're the same person. The evidence of this is that they are both black. That's it. This theory, like the Gus one, is also pretty likely, as we never see anything indicating Walt Jr. has any interest in women, but we often hear about his friend, Lewis, so it's definitely possible that they're in a romantic entanglement. This stupid theory has been floating around before Better Call Saul even aired, and is still being brought up to this day. Why people think it would be a good and satisfying idea to have this show just end abruptly the second it reaches Breaking Bad timeline, I will never know, but dumb people will probably still be saying it when season 6 starts. This is the theory that Walter White and Hal from Malcolm in the Middle are the same person, and after Breaking Bad, Walter went into witness protection and got a whole new identity and family. This theory kind of stopped making sense when the finale aired, where Walt died, but if you happen to stop watching the show after Ozymandias, you could make the connection that the vacuum disappearer guy made Hal Walt's new identity. This theory is that after the events of Breaking Bad, Skyler committed suicide due to her life being ruined, most likely via noose. This is because in the last shot of the show where we can see Skyler, her shadow on the wall looks a lot like someone hanging themselves. It's definitely a possibility, but I don't think she would do that when she still has Walt Jr. and Holly with her. After Chuck burns himself to death at the end of season 3 of Better Call Saul, Jimmy receives a letter that was written by Chuck sometime before his demise. It's a pretty nice letter, and as such, some people theorize that it was actually Kim who wrote the letter. First off, the letter doesn't mention Jimmy becoming a lawyer at all, so if Chuck did write it, it was before Jimmy became a lawyer. People have suggested that Chuck did in fact write a letter at a more recent time, as late as after him and Jimmy's last conversation, and that Kim read the original letter first, decided it was too mean, and replaced it with a nicer one. So even though there is a modicum of evidence to support this, it still seems unlikely since it mentions some details that only Chuck and Jimmy would know. And it was also refuted by both Bob Odenkirk and Thomas Schnauz, one of the writers of the show. There's also some other theories branching off of this one, such as Jimmy ad-libbing the letter on the spot, which seems highly unlikely, and that Chuck didn't mean any of what he wrote, which is a whole other discussion. Throughout the many times we see Kaylee over both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, her age seems to be very inconsistent due to her being played by multiple actresses over the years. This has led some people to speculate that perhaps Kaylee is a Benjamin Button-esque situation, where she ages in reverse, or just is fucked up aging in general. Perhaps this is why Mike is trying to get her so much money, so that she can cure her disease. We'll have to wait and see if this is finally revealed in season 6, but for now we can only guess. There's a theory going around that Kim Wexler is not Kim's real name, and she's actually in hiding after using the vacuum servers. On top of that, there may be an even grander conspiracy that Kim is only with Jimmy as part of some super long game plan to scam him into getting her tons of money, most likely through the Sandpiper settlement, which as of season 5 is still pending. People have said this is possible because Kim doesn't have a middle name, which is oddly brought up during her and Jimmy's wedding.
Do you, James Morgan McGill, take Kimberly Wexler? No middle name.
I personally take great offense to this, as I also don't have a middle name, so does that mean I'm also in hiding after committing some kind of crime? Anyways, this theory just seems way too far-fetched to be true, but it's definitely possible that we may find out some kind of secret about Kim in season 6. This is a theory that sometime between the events of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, Kim underwent intense plastic surgery and became Skylar White, possibly murdering the real Skylar and taking her place. This will definitely be revealed in season 6, so get hyped. In Better Call Saul, there is an unusually large amount of shots where a character's feet are prominently featured, usually Kim's. Considering this wasn't really a thing in Breaking Bad, it's most likely attributed to Saul's co-creator Peter Gould, who may or may not have a Tarantino-esque fetish. This theory does make a lot of sense, and I'm expecting many more Kim feet shots in season 6. This was a theory that was going around after Breaking Bad's season 3 finale aired, which ended on the cliffhanger of Jesse shooting Gale. There's a rather odd camera turn before Jesse pulls the trigger, which led people to believe that Jesse didn't shoot him at all, and maybe shot the oven causing the explosion instead. I don't know why he would do this, but we never do see Jesse explicitly kill Gale, so there's still a 1% chance he didn't do it, and Gale's head just did that. Despite the fact that Chuck's electromagnetic hypersensitivity is proven to be a mental illness as early as the 5th episode of the show, it may be that his EHS was real all along, and most times he didn't feel anything were just exceptions, or maybe Chuck pretended he didn't feel the pain as part of a grander plan to accomplish something. Some people find it odd that Gale didn't use his chemistry skills to get a normal job, and instead chose to work in the illegal drug trade, and came to the conclusion that he couldn't get a normal job due to his history as a sex offender. This Reddit posts details of the evidence, such as that his weird video he made has Thai subtitles, which is apparently infamous for its sex trading, often amongst minors. There's also the fact that Gale is just a weirdo, who would probably be a Discord mod if it existed in his time. This is an interesting theory that I couldn't find much evidence for beyond the vibe Tuco gives off. Maybe we will see his cannibalistic side emerge in season 6 when he gets out of jail. This is the theory that Skylar was actually responsible for Walt's cancer thanks to her smoking habits. I have a feeling this theory was made by one of those hardcore Skylar haters, like, I hate women, you know? But it is possible. It is possible that when Lalo returns to Albuquerque, he kidnaps Kim as revenge and forces her into slavitude, but come on. This is a variation of the Benjamin Button theory that says Kaylee's doing some time travel chicanery to stay an 8-year-old for the rest of history. Seems more likely than the other theory, in my opinion. This is similar to the Kim is Skylar theory, except it's Lalo who gets plastic surgery to become Walt after faking his death to avoid suspicion from Gus. He then starts his meth empire and all that stuff as a long game plan to get revenge on Gus, which he eventually does. Despite the finale of Breaking Bad being loved by just about everyone, some have taken issue with the fact that pretty much everything goes Walt's way in the end, and he didn't get the proper punishment he deserved. Someone then came up with a theory that the finale was actually hallucination, and Walt actually froze to death in the car that he was in at the start of the episode because he got locked in it or something. I do like this theory, but the existence of El Camino kind of ruins it. Some have theorized that it's possible that Walt Jr. is in fact not Walt's son, but Ted's in some previous affair Skyler had with him. Maybe that's why he's named Walt Jr., as a way of compensating for the fact that Walt isn't his father. Ever wondered how Gus shows almost superhuman abilities to know what Walt is doing at any given time? This theory states that Walt's glasses that he's always wearing were actually bugged, and Gus had an earpiece to listen to everything he was doing. That's how he knew not to get into the car in end times, because Walt was saying out loud that Gus should keep going.
Keep going.
This one does make sense to an extent, but probably isn't true because otherwise Gus would have known what was going on with Hector in Face Off. Since we never explicitly see Chuck die, it's only natural he faked his death as part of some grand scheme, perhaps to show how bad Jimmy can become when he isn't held back by Chuck. We also never see Chuck's body, so this theory is basically canon. Be on the lookout for Chuck's grand return in Season 6. This theory suggests that Walt was never diagnosed with cancer, and instead made it up as an excuse to start cooking meth since he was so bored with his life. This means that Walt paid off all the doctors throughout the series to act like he had cancer, and also fake coughed all the time. Not sure how the scene where Walt finds out he has cancer fits into the picture, but this theory is pretty bad, especially considering how bad Walt is at lying throughout the series, but somehow he managed to keep alive that he had cancer going all the way to his grave. Remember that stupid plane crash plot at the end of Season 2 of Breaking Bad? Some people think that some series of events will lead to Howard getting on that plane, or some theories say it's Kim instead, or maybe both. I even saw a comment saying that it could be a dramatic end of episode cliffhanger, where Howard gets on a plane, and then it's revealed to be the explosion plane, just like that movie with Robert Pattinson where it ends with him in the Twin Towers. In Season 4 of Breaking Bad, Mike starts to take an interest in Jesse and becomes something of a mentor figure to him. Because of this, genius Breaking Bad fans decided that this meant Mike was Jesse from the future, who travelled back in time in an attempt to save his past self from a life of pain and suffering. I'm not sure if he really succeeded, or why he waited until Season 4 to start giving a shit about Jesse, but I doubt whoever came up with this theory thought about any of that. When Huell showed up in Season 3 of Better Call Saul, it was a surprise to see him looking a lot slimmer than he did in Breaking Bad. This of course led fans to come up with some reason as to how Huell packed on so much extra girth, which is that Huell ate Kim at some point between the two shows. This also conveniently explains why Kim isn't in Breaking Bad, because she was inside Huell. It's unknown whether Saul knew about this, but I'm assuming he doesn't, otherwise he probably wouldn't want to keep Huell around after such an event. This theory states that Gus is able to tap into the animals around him, and that allows him to see things that he otherwise wouldn't be able to. In the End Times episode, Gus is going towards his car, but stops for some reason, then leaves. What you may not have noticed is that a bird flies past Walt during this scene, which is actually Gus using the bird to see what Walt is up to after getting suspicious about the whole affair. And in the next episode, we see a bird fly past outside the window while Walt is talking about Gus's supposed sixth sense. There's also a bird flying around when Gomez is doing his inspection of the laundry, which makes sense considering Gus would definitely want to keep track of something like that. This plays into a bigger theory where Gus is the Grim Reaper and Walt is the Antichrist, and I strongly recommend reading the theory for yourself, which I'll be sure to link in the description. Walt shaves his head, he might shave his testicles, Mike is bald, testicles are bald, bravo Vince. The last theory on the iceberg is that the pool at Walt's house is the root cause of all the problems in the show, and is what made Walt choose to cook meth. At the start of the show, Walt's family is shown to be struggling to make ends meet. He's working 2 jobs at both the high school and the car wash, and yet they live in a house with a pool, and a pretty nice pool at that. And yet, we practically never see anyone swim in it. Like the pool is just an accessory to make the family seem successful, but it's purely a facade. The pool is a metaphor for the vanity of people, living beyond their means for the sake of appearance. The pool becomes a place where bad things happen, where Skylar attempts to drown herself, where Walt decides to poison Brock. His most unforgivable decision is made at the edge of a pool, staring at it, hypnotized. The pool is alive, encouraging Walt to do these terrible things. When Skylar goes to drown herself, she stares at the pool like Walt did. And don't forget the other pool featured prominently in the series, the pool where both Gus's boyfriend and Don Eladio are killed. When Walt Jr. vomits into the pool, it's a sign of how corrupt the family has become, a stain on their trophy. When Walt has second thoughts about his business, he burns his money, but then suddenly changes his mind and saves the money by doing what? Throwing it in the pool. The pool reached out and dragged him back into the life of crime, like how it dragged Skylar into an almost certain death. Most of what I just said was paraphrased from another excellent Reddit post that I will link in the description. So that brings us to the end of the iceberg. Now that we're armed with his knowledge, we can watch the final season of Better Call Saul with a level of insight unmatched by normal fans. Thanks for watching.